Do you know how to play gin? Do you know how to play gin rummy? Let's go. If you've watched my channel, you know I teach all kinds of card games, puzzle games, board games, video games, Rubik's Cubes. And today I'm going to get into gin, or gin rummy as it's called. I'm going to explain the difference. So this video is broken into a couple of parts. Part one is I'm going to go over the super simple rules on how to play. Part two is I'm going to walk through a hand and explain everything in detail. Part three is I'm going to go over the scoring in detail. And part four, I'm going to walk through a few more hands a little quicker so you can get a feel for the game in action. You play with the standard deck of cards. It's usually played between two people. As you see here in the cards, I have my cards on the bottom. My opponent has his cards on the top. The goal of the game, or the objective of the game, is to get to 100 points before your opponent does. Some people play a game called Rummy 500 or 500 Rummy, and that's 500 points. But in the classic Gin Rummy game, it's only 100. There's two players. You each take turns being the dealer. The dealer deals 10 cards to themselves and 10 cards to their opponent, and then they take one extra card and they place it face up, and that begins a discard pile. The rest of the cards are put in a stack face down, and that's the draw pile. The goal of the game is to take your cards and turn them into melds. That means like 3 or more. You could get a set, which is, for example, 3 8s. Remember, you're only playing with one deck and there's 52 cards. No jokers. You also, in a meld, could get a run, and that is sequential cards with the same suits. A minimum meld is 3 cards, but you could have a meld of 4 or more if it was a run. On any given turn, when it's your turn, you have the option of 2 things on your turn. You pick up that discard and put it in your hand, or you pick up the draw card, which is in the pile. The advantages are this. The up card, you know what it is. You can look at your hand, you can look at that card, and you can say to yourself, does it help me? And if it does, great. If it doesn't help you, then don't waste your time. You're going to pick from the draw pile. So continuing on with what your turn is, after you've picked up a card, either from the up card pile or the down card pile, you now have 11 cards in your hand because you're dealt 10 and you've picked up one, and then you end your turn by then discarding a card. And it could even be the same exact card. And pick a card and then just drop it. You could, or you could hold it and you could put down another card. And over the course of each person taking their turn, you're going back and forth trying to get your hands together in a way that you can go down. I want you to look at the point systems. 2 is worth 2 points, 3 is worth 3 points, 4 all the way up to 10. 10 is worth 10 points. Jacks, queens, kings are also worth 10 points, like blackjack, but unlike blackjack, where an ace is an 11 or a 1, an ace is only worth 1. In gin rummy, ace is low. This is a game where you have to think about the ace as just 1. Now, we've talked about melds, which can be sets or runs. When your hand is fully sets and runs, that's called ginning. But there's another term you need to know, and that is, what do you call the cards that are not yet in a set or a run? And that's called Deadwood cards. And the reason I bring this up is because in Gin Rummy, you want to actually keep a count of how many points your Deadwood cards are. And that's leading me to something that makes Gin Rummy, which is called knocking. Ginning means you're going to go down. All your cards in your hand are in melds, whether they are in runs or sets, and you put them all down, and that's gin. Knocking is when you go down without having used all 10 of your cards in either runs or sets, and you have extra cards. So let me explain. If you have 10 or fewer points from the Deadwood cards, you can actually still go down. It's not ginning, it's knocking. You're still going to discard a card, and you're going to then lay down your melds, your sets and runs, on the table for your opponent to see, and then you'll have your knock cards, your Deadwood cards, that are not parts of melds, not parts of runs or sets. And as long as it's less than 10, you can still go out. This is important, and it only exists for the very, very, very beginning. After the cards are dealt, the person who was the dealer, they don't go first. The person who was dealt cards goes first. They have the option of either picking up the discarded card and using it. If they don't want to use the face-up discard, they have to give the other person, in this case the dealer, the option for taking that discard. A little confusing, but when we play it, you're going to get it. You'll understand. If I don't want that face-up discard and I offer it to the dealer and they don't want that face-up discard, and I can draw from the draw pile, and then it's just normal gameplay where we take turns. So let's go ahead and play a game. So each person is dealt 10 cards. Those are my 10 cards on the bottom face up. I'm playing, it's a two-player game. I'm playing an opponent whose cards are face down. Even though my cards are face up, my opponent does not know what my cards are. That the way they lay out the cards here is from lowest to highest, and you also can change it and sort it by suits. So let's look at the cards I have, just so we can talk through this. I have 4 clubs, although the only thing that really looks like it'd be an easy run would be the 6 and 7 of clubs. If I had a 5 of clubs or an 8 of clubs, that would be the 3 cards minimum needed. That 2 of hearts is by itself. The 4, 5, and 9, again, the 4, 5 is nice because if I could just come up with a 3 or a 6 of diamonds, I could make a meld. And 8 and 10 of spades, well, I would need the 9 of spades to make a meld there. And if I was just to sort it, I don't really have any, 2 of a kind or anything. Although there is a 7 there and there is a 7 in my hand. So it is up to me to start if I want that 7 or I want to pass, which then gives the option of the dealer taking that 7. And if not, if he doesn't want it, then I will go ahead and draw from the discard pile. I suppose I could take the 7 because it would give me 2 7s. And then I do have to discard something. And let me just go back to what I had before. There were cards that felt like they had no point in being in my hand. For example, that 2 of hearts here. It seems like I don't have any other 2s. It does not seem like it's going to matter. Well, looks like my opponent picked up that 2 of hearts and dropped a jack of hearts. The jack doesn't really help me, and hearts don't really help me. So I guess I'll draw from the draw pile. I was given an ace. Again, as a reminder, aces are low cards. Doesn't help me in return that ace. Just discard what I picked up, which my opponent picked up and then dropped a 10 of hearts. So you do have a 10 of spades there. I suppose here now I have 2 10s, and I do have to discard that queen of clubs. My opponent drops a queen, which makes me wonder, why did I drop that queen? Darn it, gave away one. So, oh, well, look, I've picked a 7, and that's created 3 7s now, and went ahead and actually put the 7s aside as a meld. So that's just sort of done for me. I still have the 3 and 6 of clubs. I've got a 10 by itself, but I was to sort it by suits. It's really 2 10s. I have to discard something, and so I guess the question is, what here is not really relevant in my hand? And I think it's going to be this 9 of diamonds, which I'll let go of. Oh, he picked that up too. And ironically, he gave a 10 of clubs. Well, by me picking up that 10 of clubs, that will give me a run of 3 10s. And over here, I've got a 3, a 4, a 5, 6, and an 8. A lot of Deadwood cards. The 4 and the 5 could go somewhere, so I'm going to just dump the 8. Oh, he picked up the 8 too. He's picked up almost everything that I've dropped. And now he's dropped a king of clubs, which really doesn't help me either. I will draw, and that gives me 2 6s. All I need is the 3rd 6, and I'll have a meld of 6s. I guess I'll drop that 3. He picked up as well, and dropped a 9 of hearts. Now, what we really need is if I pull from the draw pile, if I could get a 3 or a 6 of diamonds, that would make a meld here, or another 6 would make a meld there. Let's see what happens. The queen of hearts doesn't help me. I'll just discard it. My opponent dropped a 9 of clubs. Again, not really helping me. There's a 10 of clubs there, but I don't think I want to break up my 10 meld under the promise of getting cards later on. Another king. Why didn't I just keep all those kings from before? I'll let that go. And now there's a 9 of spades. Again, also doesn't help me because I've let so many other things go. And there's another queen. At some point, you're starting to kick yourself. Another 9. Well, this seems to be taking us a long time. I'm going to give up that. And now I've got an 8. Well, this is part of the strategy is being prepared to jump from one concept of a meld you're building to another instead of going for these sets. Maybe break it apart into runs. But I'm just sort of sticking with what I have. Now I have a 2, 4, 5. If I just had a 3 of diamonds, I could do something with that. In fact, I think I'm going to do that and dump the 6. Now watch the 6 come. Nope. Okay, so let's try this again. Well, that doesn't help me either, but at this point I don't need the other 6, so I might as well let that go. And now let's see. Oops, so now we have something here. So I've got a 4th 7, 4 7s, 3 10s, but the reason knock has come up is because it's letting me know that of the remaining Deadwood cards, I've got a 1, 2, 4, and 5. If I discarded the 5, the 4, the 2, and the ace would only be 7, which is under 10 and would allow me to knock. So let's go ahead and see that. Knock, knock, and let's look at the scoring here. So let's talk about scoring, because there's a lot of components to it. So if you're the one to go down, you're the one who's going to knock or gin. You lay down your cards, you lay down your melds, and if you knocked, you must have 10 points or less of Deadwood. Then your opponent lays down their melds. Whatever cards are not in a meld are their Deadwood cards. Now, the first thing that your opponent gets to do is, if he has any Deadwood cards that could be laid down on one of your existing laid down melds, it's called laying off the cards. They're allowed to lay off their Deadwood cards that work for your melds on your melds. And after they've done that, what's remaining is their Deadwood cards. So when it's time for scoring, you take the value of your Deadwood cards, you take the value of your opponent's Deadwood card, and you subtract it from the value of your Deadwood cards. So he has 33 points when he adds up his Deadwood cards. You subtract my Deadwood from his Deadwood, it's 26. I get those 26 points. Now, there's a little more to it than that, a few extra things. If you gin, then you get 25 bonus points. In addition, if you've ginned, you have no Deadwood cards, so your opponent is essentially stuck with all the cards in their hands. You get all the points. Now, there also is something else that's important, and that's called undercutting. If you have Deadwood of 10 or less, and your opponent then lays down their melds, they add up the value of their Deadwood, and if their Deadwood is equal to or lower than your Deadwood, then they receive 25 points, plus the difference between the two Deadwood hands. Now, there's a few other things. If people are like playing to 500, sometimes they'll give the first person who reaches 100 points a 100-point bonus, or they'll give a person a 25-point bonus just for winning a game. So there's different variations. Now, there's something also called big gin, and that would be a person who gins where the final card they lay down is not a discard, so they don't even need to discard. They have no unmatched cards and no Deadwood. That gives them not a 25-point bonus for gin, but a 50-point bonus for big gin. I have a 3 of clubs, a 4 of spades, 5 and a 6 of diamonds, so that's 2 towards maybe a meld if I could get a 4 or a 7. I've got 2 7s, that's helpful. I got a 7 and an 8, so a 9 or a 6 of spades would help. This one sort of stands out. This 9 of diamonds, it doesn't look like it's going to help me at all. And then I've got the Jack and the Queen, which don't really do anything here, although it is my turn to make a decision if I want to take that Queen of clubs. And by taking that Queen of clubs, it does give me 2 queens, but it also gives me the idea of maybe a Jack of and Queen of spades meld if I could just get the 10 of spades or the King of spades. So I think I'll take it. And in terms of what I have to discard, I usually like to think about what card in this deck has no meaning for me whatsoever, and honestly, that's that 3, so I'll just dump it. Oh, he picked up the 3. Discarded a queen, which I already have 2 queens, so I might as well take it. That's great. I now know I don't need that Jack, by the way. Remember I was holding it in case I needed to make a meld with that Queen of spades, so I'll let that Jack go. Neither of us seem to need Jacks. I'll just draw from the draw pile a 9, which makes 2 9s. It also, with the 7 of clubs, means that if I could come up with an 8 of clubs, maybe there's a meld there. I have to discard something, and when I look at my hand, really the only card that doesn't seem to have any potential to go anywhere, since the 5 and 6 are suited, the 4 is the only thing that seems at distance. Oh, he took the 4, and he dropped a 10 of hearts, which doesn't really help me. I'll draw. Well, now it's given me 2 8s. So now look, almost everything I have here, I've got the 5 6 of diamond, I've got 2 7s, 2 8s, and 2 9s. I do have to discard, so something here needs to be broken up. And I think what I'm going to break up is the 5 and the 6. I just feel like it. Oh, he took the 5, and he dropped a 10. Even though I don't need the 10 does fit with that 9 of clubs, and perhaps I should take it because I definitely don't need... I'm better off holding that instead of the 6. And he did give me the jack of clubs, which now allows me to build another meld of the 9, 10, jack. I've still got that queens. Anyways, it's my turn to discard. I'm going to discard that 9 because I was only holding on to it for other reasons that are no longer relevant. And he has given me a king, which I don't need. I mean, I'm already using the queen of spades, and now I've gotten an 8, which allowed me to take the 2 8s I already have and make 3 separate melds. I now have a meld of 8s, a set of queens, as well as 9, 10, jack as a run. So I have 3 separate melds. I have these 2 7s, which are the Deadwood, and I'm going to knock by discarding one, which will leave me only 7 points left in my hand, which is less than the 10, which is needed to knock. So I knock, knock, knock. I have 7 of Deadwood. Here's my 3 melds down here. He only had 1. If he had a 8 in his hand or a queen in his hand or a club in his hand that could have played off of this, he could have used it. He didn't have anything, so he had 33 points. Minus the 7, I do 56. I'm halfway to winning. Oh, immediately I was dealt an entire meld of 3, 4, 5, 6 of spades, and it's already put it aside. I also have 2 10s. I have these 4 cards here which don't seem to do anything, so I'm going to pass because I don't need this, and I have to give him the option to take it or not before, which he took, and he laid down a jack of clubs, which also doesn't help. So I'll draw. I have a jack of hearts, but there's a 10 of hearts here. I suppose I'll keep it because maybe I'll get a 9 of hearts or a queen of hearts, and I really don't see any use for any of these 3 cards here since there's nothing near. I'll just let go. He's given me a king of clubs, which I don't need in any way. A 10, and I already had the 2 10s, so now I've got the meld here with the spades, but I also have a second meld of 10s. I've got 4 cards left. I've got to get rid of one of them. To me now, because I got rid of, because I have those 3 10s, I don't need this jack anymore. I was saving it because it was a heart. Another king, but again, it does not help me whatsoever. What I have are 3 cards here that really aren't going to make its own meld. One strategy would be to try to get the points lower so that I can knock. Right now, 8, 6, and 3, that's 17. I have to knock below 10. So let's grab a card. Interesting. If I could get another 10, I could take the 10 and use it with that and create another meld. I don't think anything's going to happen with these clubs, so let me and discard it immediately. That doesn't help me either. I suppose it might if I get another 9 because I don't need to hold on to that 6. And there's a third 9. So by taking that, I now have 3 melds, but I don't even have to knock because remember I have to discard. So I've got 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got the set of 9s, I've got the set of 10s I need to discard. I only have 1 card to discard, and by discarding it's gin, meaning I don't have to knock because I've played all of my cards. Now, it says, congratulations, you win because I have 119 points. But before we do that, because I ginned, he's not able to play anything off of my cards at all. Because I ginned, I got an additional 25 points. His Deadwood cards was 38, plus my 25 for getting gin. That's over 100. I win. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. It was a lot of fun.